Welcome back to RESOLUT REveal. I'm here with my partner, Martin Turner, and we're having a very special guest today. Very excited to welcome Adam Hubschman, CCIM, to the show. Adam has spent the past 13 years building a successful career in commercial real estate, closing more than $150 million in transactions across Colorado and the Sun Belt. His background spans investment sales and owner-user properties across multiple asset types, and he's worked closely with both institutional and private clients on acquisitions, dispositions, and strategic repositioning. He also holds the CCIM designation, a mark of his expertise in valuation, financial analysis, and deal structuring. And now at 1031 Specialists, Adam helps investors and brokers navigate the 1031 exchange process with clarity and confidence, and hopefully we'll bring some of that to you here today. And he brings both a strategic mindset and deep market knowledge to every transaction. So Adam, thanks so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to diving into the 1031 exchange world with you.
Thank you so much, Ray. Martin, happy to be here.
Great. Well, let's kind of dig into your background. I know you've got a long history in the business. Where were you before 1031 Specialists, and how did you get here?
Yeah, I had done over a decade worth of brokerage in the Southeast. Like many people during COVID, reassessed my life goals and priorities. My wife and I, we were outdoors people and found Colorado where we already had family. So we took the big move west. And in that big move west, I worked with both national and local brokerage firms to the point at which I found a great opportunity after doing over 20 1031 exchanges as a broker. I never felt like I could navigate it comfortably or that I really had a guy. And so I ended up meeting with the founder, John Hilly, who's here in Denver as well. And we built a relationship, and I felt like I had a great runway here, not only in Colorado, but nationwide, to start building a national framework to go national on this. So it was a unique opportunity to stay in something that I love, get in the trenches in the art of the deals, and help brokers and investors win. It was a win-win across the board for me in terms of like what I like to do and where I am.
Fantastic. Well, for someone new to this, can you walk us through a 1031 exchange in its simplest terms?
Yeah, for layman's terms, it's the opportunity to not pay the capital gains tax when selling a building, land, or investment for that is held in investment or business purposes. So that being said, there's a great opportunity to reinvest those proceeds without paying upwards of 30% in taxes. And that spans everywhere from Airbnbs and single family rentals to shopping centers, raw land, DSTs, oil mineral rights, air rights, easements. It goes on to a way in which I only thought I understood until I really got in the trenches and looked at the 8,000 pages of tax code.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun read.
It is, but we'll talk more about why what we're doing is pretty cool.
Got it. 1031 exchanges, it's always like a kind of conversation that we touch on with investors. And it's always, I don't think enough people know enough about it, or maybe there's common misconceptions about it. What's some of the common ones that you come across and you spend a lot of time probably explaining, especially to our market and our clients who are mostly in the private client investors and local developers?
I think the biggest misconception and hang up is the phrase like kind. People think if they're selling a shopping center, they have to buy a shopping center. Or if they're selling land, they have to buy land. There's over 16 different product types that encompass the like kind. And that really gives the ability to plan ahead and sell a portfolio or retail strip center to a vacation home in Scottsdale or Hawaii or the U.S. Virgin Islands and rent it out for a couple years and then turn into a primary residence, and you just planned ahead. There's a lot of ways you can take this really robust tax law and make it work to your benefit. I think the other question we get all the time is debt. Do I need to bring debt to the table? If I have debt, do I need to match it with the same interest rate? What's the story? And we like to boil it down to one simple point, which is the net sales price. That net sales price is the number you have to hit to be able to defer the full tax and gain the full benefit. And that's just the difference between the sales price, closing costs, and commissions. And if you hit that number, you've deferred all your taxes.
Perfect.
And
Can
so
you
essentially what you're saying is that if you sell a property for $3 million and you are going back out to the market to look for your 1031 exchange property, that property has to be,
95% of that price.
and why do you say 95%?
On average, commissions about 4% and 1% in closing costs. Could change it from market to market. Commission 6%, percentage in closing costs, call it 94%, 93%. But it's in that range is the number you need to hit to fully defer. So if I have debt, and I financed 25% of it, I need to find 25% in debt or bring the cash to the table to get me to that net sales price. And all that together will fully defer your gains.
Right. So the larger the gain, the more sense it makes to engage in a 1031 exchange. If you have a very small gain, it
Absolutely.
may not make sense or make only marginal sense. But if you have a massive gain, then this is a huge, huge asset.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where you fully ran out your depreciation, you did a cost seg, and you're at the point now where your tax liability could be 40 to 50% of your sales price, if you really ran the tax schedule as you should. But there's opportunities for fully depreciation and ways in which that'll make more sense now to do a 1031 so you don't get hit with the taxes at the end.
So it sounds like that it would be helpful to get someone like yourself to get engaged with a property owner that is deciding to sell even before they sell, to figure out what the implications might look like. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. I sit down with brokers and their clients in the proposal process.
Mm,
As a former broker, I'm happy to get in the trenches. And so is the rest of our team. We have attorneys who are on our team. We have a former guy from 10X on our team down in Florida. So we really have a diverse group of business development professionals who can get in the trenches in ways that others can't, won't, or don't want to.
right. And there's no cost to the person for you to sit down with them and talk
No.
about strategy, right?
Just like you guys, our time is free. We work off of a flat fee on our forward exchanges, and they're refundable if your client doesn't hit the 45-day identification period or the 180 days to close. We'll give them their money back on day 46 or 181.
Yeah.
Plus
And
our fee.
that's something for like most owners to keep in mind. I mean, honestly, most private client owners aren't trading and doing 1031 exchanges on a regular basis. So they don't know enough when they're at that point to sell. I think as brokers for us and working with someone and calling in someone like Adam to help them walk through that process to really get a clear picture so that they can make really informed decisions moving forward. Stepping back, you mentioned the 45-day identification period. And for many, that feels like a real nail biter. We've done 1031 exchanges, and if you just plan it right, it could work out pretty well, right?
Yeah, there's nothing stopping a well-prepared broker and client from selling on a Monday and buying on a Wednesday, in the same week. And we see a lot of really qualified investors and brokers come prepared to closing with their properties already identified. And all they're doing post selling their relinquished property is going under contract. So if you plan ahead, you can really work it well. The real tricky part is there's no extensions. So if that 45-day ends on a Friday, on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday, you better be planning ahead to the Friday before to make sure that you're hitting those deadlines. And there's no getting around it. Beyond that, it becomes tax fraud.
Right. And that's something you don't want happening.
Hey, it's cheaper to pay your taxes at that point.
No, one of the big mistakes I've seen as a broker, having represented buyers in 1031 exchanges is, a lot of people will understand that 45-day identification period, and they'll take it seriously up to the extent that they find a property that they want to move forward with, and then they kind of treat the other two as if, they're but yeah, let's throw a couple of other properties in there just in case. And then property one goes south for any number of hundreds of reasons that deals go south. And they're stuck with these other two that they didn't really take too seriously. I've seen that happen frequently.
Totally.
And if you're going into a 1031 exchange, I would just say take each of those three properties very seriously and put in properties that you would like to close, because you don't want to be in the position of having that first deal go south and then having to close or having to take the tax hit by not closing on one of those other properties.
That's a good point, Martin. And that's where that since leaving brokerage, I've really found the DST to be very interesting and powerful as a third serious option to be identifying in the 45-day period. Because these funds you satisfy your exchange regardless if the fund has closed their fundraising yet. So once you move your money in, your 1031 is satisfied.
Can you define DST?
Yeah, that's a Delaware Statutory Trust. So that is a vehicle that allows investors to buy partial shares of larger projects. And there's hundreds of different DSTs out there. They're not all built the same, like a triple net building. They're not all ran the same. They have different fee structures and different payout schedules, anywhere from 4 to 15%. And it just depends on the risk and the hold period. And we can go into those more now, later, but they really handcuff the liquidity of the investor. What we all like about real estate and real property is that if you want to sell, you can sell. In a DST, they have a hold schedule that you sign a contract to that you have to sit in for the duration. So you really lose a lot of your liquidity. But if deal falls apart on day 178, they can take the money on 179.
And so would that be the same thing as what's called a lazy 1031 exchange? Is that
It's the most passive income you can get. In the retail world, we like to talk about your triple net deal as your passive investment or mailbox money, but oftentimes there's still some sort of landlord requirement to pay the tax bill to make sure you get reimbursed. This is literally putting your money into a fund. I want to use the fund lowercase, not uppercase fund, because there are other funds that don't qualify, while the DST is a vehicle where in Texas, Ray, they are building giant housing communities. And these housing communities buy their land before they build it. They then sell the land in a DST and rent it back to give them liquidity to go build more properties.
Interesting. Why don't we kind of step back into
Yeah.
the 1030 exchange process as well? Say we have a seller that's selling. We get past the due diligence period. Their intention is to get into a 1031, but they're not really sure about the process itself. So after, when do you 1031 specialists get engaged? What happens when the proceeds are there to be distributed from the buyer? And, what happens next through all that?
Absolutely. We have been brought in the day before closing, but we usually like to get engaged a little beforehand. There is some paperwork that's required. We work off of a straightforward e-signature engagement letter. So once the client's like, hey, I want to exchange, they'd introduce us. We would take it from there, walk them through the process of the 1031 exchange, how it doesn't really change the sales process. except for the fact that we're the ones going to receive the funds and put it into a segregated trust account that we set up with a partner bank out of Atlanta. Pardon me, with a partner bank. And that partner bank then gives us a separate ID number so we can track those funds and those minutes.
And what's important is that that money has to go directly to you. Like it can't go
Yes,
to the
so we
seller
take
and then
direct
over
receipt
to
of the
you. Yeah.
funds. We get an assignment of the contract that the client signs and files with the title company or the attorney you're closing.
Mm-hmm. Which essentially is just, it's another escrow account. Am I correct? That's collecting
Absolutely.
interest.
But sometimes
Yep.
it's not separated.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of local 1031 intermediaries that will use a single account. We felt that we want to make sure the funds were super safe. So we require 3 signatures. We have a 3-point verification system for all wires that we just put in place. And we're making sure the bank that we're working with is FDIC insured and that we hold the right types of insurance and bonds to make sure that it's safe as well.
And you're tracking the deal throughout this time, making sure everything's staying compliant.
So we make sure that all the paperwork is filed appropriately for the identification paperwork. And then once the process is complete, we will provide a full package that will then be filed with the CPA, with their CPA to give them the benefit.
And you also work nationally too.
Yeah, we've done deals from Hawaii all the way through the East Coast. Not yet in the U.S. Virgin Islands, although eligible. I'm waiting to see that deal come through where
Yeah.
someone wants to 1031. I've gotten the question about Puerto Rico, but unfortunately they are not part of the 1031 exchange.
Okay. Go ahead, Mart.
No, I've always been curious about the declaration of those 3 properties. What is the actual process on your end that you're going through to declare those properties? What prevents somebody from slipping in another property after the fact?
Well, we use everything electronic. So we send a e-signature version that gets filled out and then gets logged on day 45. So there's no squeezing in a deal on day 46. Because if that's being allowed to happen, who else is it being allowed to happen for? We want to make sure we stay compliant all the way through to ensure that we're making sure we give the right advice throughout the process.
On that note, let's shift to what we're seeing in today's market and exchanges. Just real quick, like identifying 3 properties, especially in such a competitive tight market that we're in. What's the average day that people are submitting to you and registering properties with you?
I think the number we track really closely is how long people are in their 1031 exchanges as a whole, and
Okay,
it's about 90 days.
got it.
And that usually is the person that's planning well, that has identified their property within the first 2 weeks and puts it under contract and then does a 60-day closing.
Over the past, 4 years, we've really seen a downturn in transaction activity. I'm sure all of our businesses have slowed a bit, but we do feel like there's been an uptick over the past 18 months. What are you guys seeing in the market right now? What product types are you seeing most active? And deal size would be like something I'd really be interested to learn.
It was kind of surprising to see the prevalence of residential geared properties in the 1031 exchange, especially in the markets that we're hitting. We see a lot of single family rentals, a lot of duplexes, condos, and the smaller properties. The bigger properties tend to be held in LLCs, which make it a little harder to 1031 if not all partners want a 1031. But we're seeing a movement across all product types into triple nets, into diversification out of one large property into 3 smaller properties. I just finished up a 1031 with a client that sold a building and they're buying 2. So we're seeing both the growth and the diversification as well as consolidation. So we're like we did a deal with an industrial owner who sold a $10 million property He then bought 10 $1 million homes and created a single family rental portfolio.
Wow.
We're
Interesting.
also seeing the people who are tired of managing and consolidating their portfolio into something big and stable. So there's a lot of movement both ways, but we're also seeing the rise of the DST, which is
I was just about to ask that because I'm
which is
guessing
something
there's.
that I always recommend looking at and
Mm,
using a DST broker, because
mhm.
they'll be the ones to underwrite and understand all the different products and help you understand what the risks and rewards are for each.
I mean, I could see because of the lack of inventory to buy out there, plus, you know, really competitive pricing, that might be a good option for just a lot of ease for people.
Great way to kick the can down the road.
Mhm.
Or it's a great way to not pay the taxes if you expect this to be your last transaction. Really set up the estate planning for your heirs to get not only the stepped up basis and dissolve all the previous tax liability. We call it swap till you drop. Or
Great plan.
yeah, it's the best plan. There's two things that you can't avoid: taxes and death.
Mhm.
Well, I think we figured out how to avoid one with the other.
Yeah, still gotta figure out the second one, right? Or maybe not.
But, I think there's a lot of estate planning that can be done
Yeah.
from the brokerage seat of, oh, I want to cash out. Or is it that you don't want to manage and can live without the cash flow? Or is it just you need $1,000 or $10,000 and you want to do a partial exchange where you take a little money and exchange the rest? There's no reason why 1 out of 7 transactions are 1031.
Yeah. So, how is the bonus depreciation, which is part of the one big beautiful bill, how is that affecting 1031 exchanges, or will it?
Yeah. So on the tax side, from a year in, year out basis, the bonus depreciation affects the tax bill. In terms of the selling of the property, there's going to be a larger liability through that full depreciation that's gonna catch up. So the 1031 is gonna be super important to help defer that tax liability and reset whatever depreciation clock they have on their next property.
Yeah.
It's gonna
So,
catch up to everybody.
in the long run, it will have a positive effect for you and on the 1031 exchange side, because it increases the advantages of doing a 1031 exchange.
And that's why we're on a course of education. We believe that stat is not because people want to pay their taxes. It's because that there's a true lack of education that just needs to be crossed. And it comes down to the raw land questions. It comes down to oh, I'm 88. It's like, oh, let's set you up for success to pass down to your heirs and not have you pay this huge tax bill. Because I hear the story all the time from colleagues' parents who are like, oh yeah, we ended up selling our condo down in Florida or down in Arizona, and we just paid the tax bill. But if I knew about it now, I would have advised them otherwise.
You brought up partial exchanges. So when would someone be interested to do that rather than taking a full deferment?
If there's a requirement or a need for liquid cash on hand, you may not be willing to pay that whole tax bill, but if you need some cash and take out 100K, you can still walk away with $60,000 in cash or more. And if it's a question of just needing a little bit of money, there's a lot of ways in which to make that happen through a partial exchange to help pay off other loans. People ask me if they can 1031 into a loan payoff. Unfortunately, you have to be acquiring something new, unless you're doing a construction exchange or improvement exchange, where you're using the money from the 1031 exchange to build or improve on a product you already own.
Can you dig into that a little more?
Yeah, it can be a little tricky because there's the whole permit process. So you really have to be planning ahead if you plan on building something new on your own property. It doesn't have to be completed, but the funds in which you are 1031ing have to be used within the 180-day period. They have to be spent. It is incredibly challenging, and there's a lot of paperwork and legal entities that need to be set up to be able to create the correct flow of money, and the receipts need to be there in a way that receipts aren't always there.
But it can be done.
It can be done.
Yeah.
The
As
same
long
way
as you
with a
plan.
reverse exchange.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of conversations and questions about reverse exchanges because as brokers, we feel that it's a great way to unlock a seller. What do I want to buy? Don't worry about it. Buy it now and we'll sell your property later. The hardest part is the question of debt because, like a 1031 exchange, a forward exchange, we take receipt of the funds. So that being said, we take receipt of the building and we hold on to it and put it into an LLC during the 180-day period.
This is actually perfect timing because I have a meeting later today with an owner that occupies an office building that they use, but they want to buy another one and vacate the current one. So what can I advise them today on that process?
So yeah, we need to get ahead of the acquisition process because we need to set up an LLC that will take receipt of the building. That being said, you also need a bank if you were getting a loan that is comfortable with lending to your client while we take title. And it's not often the question, can you do a reverse exchange? It's, have you done a reverse exchange? Because we've gotten pretty far down the line and the bank blows out of the deal. And that is the biggest issue when coming with a reverse exchange, is that your client's going to have to fully fund their acquisition, and then they'll make themselves whole with the sale of their property.
Are there lenders right now that have an appetite for that, or like what do you see?
You're looking for your bridge lenders. They're not necessarily your big banks, but it's your private individuals who are going to be lending money, and it's going to be 6 points over prime. It's not going to be cheap.
Right.
But it's a 180-day bridge loan. So if it can solve your problem and you can get over the pain of the points, then you've done it successfully. And it's really great if you own a business or you have a mountain house you can't live without. We hear that a lot being here in Colorado, where I want a new mountain house in Vail, but I don't want to sell my house in Aspen first. Or, hey, I have a manufacturing business where I'm making chocolate and I need to put all the equipment into the new building before I sell my building. So it's a very useful way to buy a building while deferring taxes, but also expensive and can turn into an acquisition and a forward exchange if not done properly.
Got it. So if the seller gets involved in a reverse exchange, purchases the building, like they get everything funded through whatever course they decided to take, but the property that they're getting out of is taking much longer or is it can't be sold, what happens then? Is it just there's no recourse for setting up a LLC with you for the whole during that, or how does that work?
So correct me if I heard you correctly. If a reverse exchange fails,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So
Simply,
if a reverse exchange fails, we can give the client their property. But what we often see is that for the relinquished property that they're planning on moving out of or selling, they then end up doing a forward exchange with it to still defer the taxes. You end up getting stuck with two buildings, but at least you didn't pay the taxes when you sold. So we often see a reverse exchange of reverse exchange.
So it's not that complicated, honestly, if
No,
that happened.
it's just a lot of money in the end.
Yeah.
The process and cost to start a reverse exchange
Yeah.
for us is a little more expensive
Mhm.
than our forward exchange.
Got it.
So, in terms of of fees on a 1031 exchange, what would somebody be expecting to pay for?
So we work off of a flat fee approach. So our fee is $11.95. And that fee is if you buy 15 properties on your replacement, off of your replacement, we're not going to charge for every wire we send out. We're not going to charge for beyond that. It's $11.95 flat. For reverse exchange, we're set $79.95, and on an improvement, we're at almost $10,000.
And in terms of volume in the 1031 market, like what have we seen there? Like I know it dipped pretty significantly. Are we seeing recovery? Where are we at?
Across the board, we saw a major dip in 23 in the amount of 1031 exchanges we've seen. And that's why we feel we're really well positioned to take on the growth and needs of the market by being tech forward and automated and doing these little things to make it faster and more reliable. So we expect to see an uptick with interest rate changes and 10-year treasury and all the right metrics, and we'll be prepared to take on the volume as we continue to grow across the country. So we're ready for it. We're excited for it.
I mean, I'm sure interest rates have just a massive impact on your
Well,
side of things.
it's really the gap between the buyer and seller that we've seen across the market that slowed down the sales process. And regardless to the slowdown in appetite for sales, there's going to be a demand for sale due to the aging out of owners. In terms of all of the housing forecasts, in terms of sales, we have a low when it comes into apartment and home building, but give us 10 years and we'll have too many vacant single family homes that we know what to do with. So I think we're just poised for the right positioning to see more 1031s happening with the accelerated depreciation, with opportunity zones, with DSTs and all these other vehicles that are creating great tax advantages for investors.
A lot of good information. Before we go, so what should owners be looking for in a qualified intermediary, and also what separates you from the competition out there?
Our competition are title companies. They're backed by title companies, and we are tech forward in our response and our approach. So you call us on a Saturday, we'll pick up. We take the brokerage mindset to this, but we have a great AI chatbot on our website that we trained on all 8,000 pages of the code. So for those questions that keep you up at night, we have Mr. 1031 here to answer. We also have a brand new phone number at 269-999-1031 that you can call in and ask Mr. 1031 yourself as well. So we have these great ways to bridge the gap, but we're also here to walk everyone through the process as it's needed. So we're not here, hey, good luck, but we're also here, how can we make sure you're getting it done and you're ending up happy? We believe that the first rule is that we're here to make our clients happy. And our second rule is don't forget the first rule.
Very nice. Yeah, perfect. We'll make sure that we have your information in the description below, and feel free to reach out to Adam. Before we go, the key advice for owners and sellers looking into 2026?
It's going to be really interesting to see how we can bridge the appetite for buyers and to get the sellers off the sidelines. We have a lot of patient buyers ready to jump on the right deals, and hopefully we see some correction in the market and we can get everyone on the same planet. And once we get that and we start getting deals and negotiations done, I think we'll see a really great year. I saw a great broker out of Chicago post a video that's only 50 seconds long. Apparently he has 50 hours of watching. It's of a snapping turtle about to eat a goldfish. And the snapping turtle is just patiently sitting there waiting. Everyone's watching it. And then at the end it snaps. He sent the metrics on LinkedIn. He's like, I had 50 hours of watching. how are people watching this 50-second video? Because that's the state of the market.
I love
We're
that.
all
Yeah.
just waiting
Yeah.
for the right deal, whether it's a 150 a door apartment deal in Denver or a sub $100 square foot industrial deal. Or I know there's brokers out in California who are trying to make 4 caps great again. So there's a lot of appetite. So we've got to get people off the sideline and start negotiating.
We get consistent calls from investors. I mean, there's still that wall of cash sitting out there that's like really actively looking to be placed. I think we're going to see more and more motivation for sellers. Just as we were talking about the aging of the population, we're finding more owners that are at the point where, they want to get out of their deals, maybe capitalize on all that appreciation that they built up. And in a lot of cases, second gen or next generation doesn't want to really handle the real estate as well. It's been changing hands. So I think, there's going to be a lot of things going on and a lot of good activity to keep you guys busy, us hopefully as well.
We're here to coach up the community wherever we can, whether it's lunch and learns or industry events. We'll be out and about and you can see us around. I'm going to Bigger Pockets this weekend. I'll be at
Fantastic.
SIOR. We'll be at Next. We'll be at CCIM. We're out and about getting in front of the community to help provide a better 1031 experience.
ICSC Red River's in San Antonio, so I'll extend the invite. Hopefully you can make it next year, February.
I will look forward to that. I'd love to visit Red River.
Awesome. Any final words before we go? Or?
Just keep calm and move on. Let's keep penciling deals. Let's keep looking at stuff. There's tons of opportunity out there, whether it's in your single net, triple net, your self-storage, your land. There's a lot of great opportunity out there. I'm looking. I know you're looking. Martin. So I'm just excited for what deals may come and how I can help brokers as well as their investors save more money.
Well, Adam, thanks so much for joining us again, sharing your insights in the 1031 exchange process. I really learned a lot myself.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. That was great.
Thank you, guys. And we'll connect soon. Beyond this, we started a way to implement our system into CRMs. So instead of even thinking about an introduction, we've turned it to just a button. So we're working with a group out of Florida right now that has literally sent us 15 leads in 3 days through a CRM plugin that we've put in.
Interesting.
Sends out an automatic introduction and we send automatic responses and follow-ups back.
You'll have to connect with Martin on that. Martin likes to really nerd out on that stuff.
We'll make sure to connect offline, Martin. But thank you guys so much for the opportunities.
If you'd like to learn more, make sure to connect with Adam at 1031specialists with an S at the end.com. And he'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you and give some more clarity on the 1031 exchange process. Thanks for joining us here at RESOLUT REveal, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.